This video looks at the biological process that controls sweat and digestion that could be also limiting your income and why willpower doesn't work. So we're all heading somewhere, whether you believe it or not, whether you realise it or not. We're actually already on a path. We're already going somewhere. We just don't know where it is. And if you're not well, for most of us, we don't know where it is. That is the point of high performance thinking. If you want to go a particular somewhere, if you want your life to go in a particular direction, then you need to make that happen. And if you don't, if you're not careful, you'll just end up somewhere else, the somewhere else being where it is you're actually going. So, I want to talk about my weight. It's not a subject I particularly enjoy talking about, but I think it does demonstrate an important point. So there's me, believe it or not, on my honeymoon, my first honeymoon. I've had a couple of honeymoons. I might have a couple more yet before this life's over. But anyway, I was 22 years of age, and that's Beach Cayman Island, I think, in Fiji. And there's me, and not too bad looking. I got to admit, looking back now, I go, not too bad. And just a bit of a tummy. And most of my adult life, I've had sort of some weight issues. And you can see there, 22, built more for comfort than for speed. That's for sure. Here's a more recent picture, and you can see I've still got the same great dress sense. Still Mr. Dapper, and still love my little caps, which is great. And you can see that I've put on a couple of kilos. Oh, and here's a more recent picture of me. No, not quite. But look, most of my adult life I've had some weight issues, and there's a whole bunch of things I've tried to do about it. And I know all the diets, and I've tried all the diets, and I've tried exercising, and I've been to the doctor, and I've got a list of medical reasons why I can't lose weight from. Every time I go to the doctor, he finds something else that needs some other tablet or some other thing that needs to be done. The thing is that I love my sweets. I love drinking a soft drink. I love eating chocolate and chips and cakes and all the bad things. And in fact, I could spend my whole life eating bad food. And when I say bad, I mean food that puts weight on. I could do that, but I sort of limit my intake some amount. And despite all this extra weight that I'm carrying, there's a question I keep asking myself, which I think is a very important question. And the question is, why aren't I heavier? Why is it that I'm overweight at the weight that I'm at? Why is it that I seem to exist at a certain overweightness? I could be heavier. I could eat a lot more cake and a lot more chips and lollies and licorice and chocolate and all the fattening cream and all the fattening things. I could be heavier, but I'm not heavier. Why is it that I'm this level of overweight and not some other level of overweight? And the answer to that is homeostasis. And homeostasis is the topic I want to talk about for this segment of the video. There's two types of homeostasis, and one of them you're very familiar with, and that is physiological homeostasis. Homeostasis is about balance. It's about keeping the body in equilibrium. Stasis is in steady state. The body has a mechanism to maintain its body temperature. We have a mechanism to maintain our body temperature within a particular range, which is 37 degrees Celsius, 97 point whatever it is degrees Fahrenheit. And the way the body maintains the body temperature, the way we maintain our body temperature at a particular figure is through the act of homeostasis. And specifically, the balancing act is by balancing cooling actions against warming actions. So here, this picture of this young lady on the screen here, you can see she looks a bit cold, and she's holding her arms and covering herself. And if she gets much colder, she'll start to shiver. And in fact, before she starts to shiver, you might find that the hairs start to stick out a bit and she gets little goosebumps on her skin. And these are all physiological ways that the body uses to increase heat. Shivering, the muscle movement shivering is meant to increase heat. Your hair standing up and the goosebumps is a way of keeping a warm blanket of air close to the surface of the skin. Now, that's what happens when you get cold. And if you get even colder, then blood flow starts to change. And one of the reasons your lips go blue when you're very cold is because blood is moved away from the extremities or the outside surface from the skin and into the inner organs, and it stops the blood from cooling down and keeps the inner organs active. If you were getting overheated, we'd go the other way. You'd start to perspire, and the perspiration, the sweat, as it evaporates, has a way of removing heat from the body. So homeostasis is the all-encompassing label that we categorise all of these various physiological functions that the body goes through to maintain equilibrium or to maintain balance. Digesting food is a similar thing. We need to keep up our energy levels, and digestion is a homeostatic process. And there's all sorts of other processes that the body goes through to maintain balance, to stay within a certain range, if you like, or a certain set point. Psychological homeostasis is the same thing. It's rather than being the body and being physical, it's the mind that's being psychological. Psychological homeostasis is processes that we go through to keep us in balance around a set point. So it works a bit like this. Homeostasis is the process that keeps the autopilot on course. It gives us our course corrections so that if we're heading in a particular direction, and that direction is known as a set point, or you could consider it to be a self-concept, that direction of a set point or a self-concept gives us our direction, and homeostasis will keep us in a specific range of the set point. Brian Tracy, who is one of my virtual mentors, he's a public speaker and author and does a lot of training. He does sales and self-development and personal development. He talks about an income self-concept. And Brian Tracy, in his teachings, he teaches that people have set points around, for example, income. And so we believe we should earn a certain figure, a certain income per year. And now this is all happening at an unconscious level. So we believe our income should be a certain figure, and then we will enact behaviours to make sure that that income is reached and not exceeded. That's what's important here. If you think you're a $100,000 a year person, you'll do enough work to earn yourself around about $100,000 a year. If something happens and you start running out of money, you'll do things to increase your income. If there's not enough money coming in, you might take on some overtime or do some work to increase your income to maintain a particular lifestyle, to maintain within a particular balance. But the opposite is also true. If suddenly you ended up having a windfall, an injection of cash that you weren't expected, you may exhibit certain unconscious behaviours that will prevent you from earning more money. So it will maintain your income around the particular figure, the unconscious figure, the figure of the set point that you have of how much you should earn. And why you've got that set point and how it was developed is a whole other story. That's a whole other process. Self-concept comes from life script, so we'll be talking about that very shortly. We have self-concepts about everything, about how much income we should earn, about how hard we should work, about how religious we should be, about the sort of foods we should eat, how our relationships work, what sort of lover we are, what sort of partner we are, what sort of father, son, mother, daughter, husband, sister, brother we are. We have self-concepts. We have a belief about ourselves, about how we fit in the world and how we behave in the world. And the process of homeostasis will keep us within the confines of those concepts. So for me, for example, I have a psychological concept that I should be a certain weight, and that stops me from getting heavier. It stops me from getting lighter. It also stops me from getting heavier. And so I exist within a particular band of weight, which is one of the reasons why willpower doesn't often work. Lots of people, we're often told to try and use willpower to change things. And willpower is a terrible way to try and change your behaviour. Because what you're doing with willpower, we can see here, here's a guy having a tug of war with himself. And that's what willpower is. Willpower is you trying to use force, the force of your mind, the force of your will, to overcome the force of your physiology, to overcome the force of your learning, your understanding, your set point, the way your body works, the way your mind works. Willpower alone is a terrible way to try and change behaviour. Now, for some people have great willpower, and they have got the strength of will to be able to control their behaviour simply by the force of willpower. But many people can't. And the problem with our society, many problems with our society, one of the low performance thinking problems with our society is that we think that if someone can't control their behaviour through willpower, we think that they're weak. And that's just not true. It's just not true. Just because, some people can lift 3 bags of concrete on their shoulders and walk down the street, and some people can't. Now, we don't point our finger at the people that can't and say, well, you're not strong enough, you're weak, there's something wrong with you. We wouldn't say that. We just point to the person that's strong and go, well, there's a very muscular, strong, well-developed person. It says that the lack of ability of the other person really says nothing. It says nothing about them. But when it comes to will, if somebody can't control their weight through lack of will, for some reason we tend to want to point fingers at them and say, oh, there's something wrong with you. And that's just not true. Because the power of will is not as strong as the power of homeostasis. So what we need to do is we need to learn ways to make our body work in harmony. We need the different parts of our mind and our will and our psychological homeostasis and physiological homeostasis to work. Here we've got a band where all the members are the one person and we're basically all playing in harmony. So what we're after is to use a range of techniques to change the set point. You don't want to, willpower is trying to do something that is contrary to your set point. High performance thinking is trying to do something to change the set point, change the self-concept, and then through the power of homeostasis, we will naturally behave differently. Once you change the set point and the self-concept, you will act differently because homeostasis will ensure that. So I want to summarise homeostasis. We don't go through life like a nice, steady, even progress like this red line I've just drawn. Life is more wiggly than that. So whilst there's a set point which is like the red line that goes evenly through the pathway, in reality my weight goes up and down, my income goes up and down, my love life goes good and bad. And homeostasis will keep us within a range, stops us from veering too far from our self-concept and our set points. So what we need to do is change the set points, and there's a range of ways to do that. This slide intentionally left blank. When I originally wrote this part of the course and produced the slideshow that you're now seeing, I thought it was necessary to say something specific at this point. There's a logical next thing I should be saying to you right now. And I've decided not to say it. I've decided not to go there to save you some time. So here we go. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a little competition. I will give a free ticket to the next High Performance Thinking workshop to the first person that can tell me what this slide was supposed to be about. And to keep this alive, every other person after the first person that messages me, emails me, contacts me through Facebook or LinkedIn or through my website, and correctly tells me what should have been on this slide, I will give a $50 cashback certificate for them to claim at the next High Performance Thinking workshop. Come to the workshop, and whatever other discounts you've got, and there are certain discounts for Facebook and a few other discounts going at the moment. We have an introductory offer going. Whatever your discount is, if you're the first person gets in for free, and everybody else will get $50 cash in their hand. Cash in their hand at the workshop, if you know what the content of this slide should be. Okay, action exercises for this section. List 5 words that you use to describe yourself. So we're trying to work out what are some of the self-concepts. So for me, for example, I chose stepfather, toastmaster, inquisitive, philosophical, and overweight. They're words I use to describe myself. For each word listed in step 1, consider what behaviours you exhibit that are consistent with the word. So for me, if I pick the word toastmaster as the word, what would be the behaviours? I might think regularly goes to meetings, volunteers for the club executive, delivers speeches, provides encouraging evaluations. So what I'm actually looking at is what's the word that I have that I associate with myself, what's my self-concept, and then what are the associations, what are the concepts within that concept. When I say I'm a Toastmaster, that means I exhibit those behaviours. That's what that means to me at an unconscious level. Then for each word listed in step 1, the original list, consider what behaviours are inconsistent with that word. For example, if I again pick Toastmaster, what is inconsistent is arriving late to meetings, avoiding club visitors, and not participating in the club program. If I see people that call themselves Toastmasters that are exhibiting the behaviours that I believe to be inconsistent, then that creates a conflict in me. Or if I do those inconsistent behaviours, that creates a conflict in me. Again, these are just associations, and we're just exploring how these associations work. And then step 4, take some time over the next couple of days to think about what you would think, feel or do if you are unable to do the behaviours listed in step 2. So if you could not do the things that you believe you should be doing, or if you did do the behaviours listed in step 3. So if you did do the things that you think are inconsistent with that word. Spend some time. Now the point here is for you to learn that you do have self-concepts and how they play out in your mind. That's what we want to learn here. So you can pick any particular topic you like, whether it's something that's you want to change or just something that you're quite happy about. The point is to explore the impact that self-concepts have on your life. Okay, good luck with that. The next video shows how every day you're acting out an invisible script that was written by your parents or caregivers before you were 8 years of age.